Do you know the first time I came across you, I was listening to a podcast that you were on, and you were talking about how the wealthy don't brag about their duplexes. And at that time, I was buying duplexes, triplexes, and I'm like, man, I can't brag about my duplex. You're like, the rich are bragging about their 30, 40, 50 unit new development, like the really sexy deals. Welcome to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. Manny here with my co-host Ian. This was a special episode. We had on the godfather of real estate, Alfonso Cuadra. If you guys know anything about this guy, he's been dominating the real estate space for decades now, and he's taken his domination all across North America. But Ian, how did you like this conversation?
Man, so inspiring. Yeah, for anyone listening to the episodes, on a fairly regular basis, I might have to bookmark this as one that you should get some of the most from. Like we didn't go into crazy specifics anywhere, but just his story, what he's accomplished, where he's at now. It's super inspiring. It just makes you want to run through a wall. So, I hope you all really enjoy this podcast. I know we had a bunch of fun recording it, chatting with him before and after, all that good stuff. So, you guys are in for a good one.
It's funny, too, because you hear Alfonso's story, which I'm not going to touch on. You guys have to wait and listen. But then if you listened to our episode last week and we talked about how Canadians are struggling, come on. I'm sure I don't want to talk down on the people's struggle, but it's like there's different levels to this stuff, right? So if someone from Alfonso's position can reach to where he is now, anybody can. Well, I don't want to say anybody, but there's no reason why you should be crying on TikTok about what's going on in your life when a guy that was in Alfonso's position in his younger age was able to climb the mountain and just take over the world right now. So yeah, without further ado, please enjoy this episode with the godfather of real estate, Alfonso Cuadra.
Hey, good to be here, guys. Like this is like now chilling on the couch here,
Yeah, and that's what we want it to be.
Yeah.
This is just
Instantly, the second I entered the room with you guys, it was just chill.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alfonso, I feel like everybody that listens to our podcast is going to know who you are. But at the same time, I want to give you a quick introduction, then you can carry on. So Alfonso has been a mentor of mine for the past couple of years. He's helped me grow exponentially ever since I met him. But before that, he's been in real estate for 20 plus years. He's been in the business world for 20 plus years. He's made and sold multiple multi-million dollar businesses. And now he's scaled up his portfolio to massive numbers here in Canada. And now he's going down south and we're taking over the States. So Alfonso, anything, I'm sure there's a lot there I'm missing, but what else do you want to tell the people?
Listen, all I got to say is you better listen up here. I don't know what the attention span of your listener is or your viewer, but we're going to be dropping nuggets. And by the end of this conversation, you're going to be millions of dollars richer just by the value we're going to drop here on this episode.
If that doesn't hook people on
Love
to
it.
stay, I don't know what will. Actually, Alfonso, I wanted to tell you something. Do you know the first time I came across you, I was listening to a podcast that you were on. And you were talking about how the wealthy don't brag about their duplexes. And at that time, I was buying duplexes, triplexes, and I'm like, man, I can't brag about my duplex. You're like, the rich are bragging about their 30, 40, 50 unit new development, like the really sexy deals. And that's what first opened my eyes. And then I feel like a couple months later, you came to Halifax, and it's all history from there. But Alfonso,
Wow.
how about you tell us just about your background and your history? Like how did you get from, your early days to where you are now, just taking over the world?
Well, I'll give you the quick synopsis. I'm an immigrant. I came to Canada when I was 9 years old. Before 9, I was in 2 wars back home in Latin America, El Salvador and Nicaragua. So I didn't have a regular upbringing, and coming into Canada as a refugee, I had a tough time integrating into the school system here. I'd missed a lot of educational opportunities. I wasn't really inspired in school, so ultimately I got frustrated, dropped out of high school at 15, left home. Now I'm living on the streets at 15 years old. Had some of my darkest moments in my life, living on those streets and, living on park benches, inside banks or whatnot. And I learned a lot. I mean, we've all had some sort of dark moment in our lives, And so what changed everything for me is I became a dad at 17. And at 17 years old, I'm a new father, and like my only mission in life is to make this little girl proud of me. And so ultimately, that's kind of how everything started. I went back to school, got a job, $5 an hour, and I realized that $5 an hour was not going to be enough to take care of my small family. And so I had to get innovative. I had to figure something out. And so what I started doing was I started selling clothes, t-shirts and jeans from my locker in high school. Well, my very first pair of jeans that I sold I sold them for $60. Pair of jeans that I bought for $20, making a $40 profit. And I was like, whoa, this is great. And so at 17, I had the lesson of profits, Maybe I didn't even know the word, but I knew that I wasn't going to go back to my $5 an hour job, making $40 on a 10-minute transaction. And so that's what I decided to pursue. I said, I'm going to pursue profits for the rest of my life. And so I graduated high school. I started a business. I took that business from zero all the way to millions of dollars and scaled it all across Canada. And that was kind of my beginnings of becoming an entrepreneur and realizing that I can control my destiny. What I loved about being an entrepreneur was that I had control over my time. Now, I was working hard and I had that stream of income. And when the market changed, it almost took me out. And so now I'm in a position, I'm 21 years old, I had millions of dollars, and now I'm 24 years old, negative $1 million, and now realizing everything could just fall apart here, and I might have to go back to working $5 an hour. And so I think that was like really scary for me. It was like a moment of, come to Jesus moment, you know what I mean? And I had to look at myself in the mirror and, be honest with myself, stand in my truth and say, Alfonso, like, what happened? Well, you know what? What happened was I was a consumer. I was spending all the money. The money was coming in. I thought it was going to keep coming in forever. And ultimately that tap, was tapped out. And, now I'm going on lines of credit and, trying to sustain my lifestyle. And so then I'm like, okay, so I have options here. Like, I could just put my head in the sand, or I could do something to change my circumstances, to get myself out of this massive hole. I remember leaving one of my stores, and there's a guy panhandling for change, and I was like, geez, this guy's worth more than I am. He's got nothing. I'm negative $1 million.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's got more
tough.
money than me. And so, I had to do something. And what I realized is I had no financial education. Even though I had a successful business, I was not educated in finances, in investing. Very similar to someone, having a gift in terms of like playing music or being an athlete. They're going to go make millions of dollars. But if they have no financial literacy, they're going to spend all that money. And that's what I did. I spent all that money. I said, I got to educate myself. And, what I did, I went to Chapters. I went to the bookstore. And I looked for books, and I started reading books. I started to educate myself on biographies of successful people. I started to educate myself on, strategies on building your business. And what I discovered is exactly what you said, Manny, where, the successful people, the wealthiest people in the world are not consumers, they're investors. And so I was very much a consumer because I was following what I thought success was, or what I thought wealthy people were supposed to do. But what wealthy people actually do is they invest their money, right? And so a big difference between the investor mindset versus the consumer mindset. And then the second thing I discovered is that the wealthiest people in the world have multiple streams of income. I only had one. And so, when that industry was hammered, I was going down with it. And lastly was exactly what you said, is like, okay, so wealthy people they all have real estate. That's a common thread. And I've read multiple books and biographies on all these people. And so they all have real estate, but they're not bragging about the ones and twosies. They're not bragging about their triplex. In fact, Warren Buffett doesn't even list his house on his net worth statement, right? Because the house is where he lives. It's not an investment to Warren Buffett. His investment is his portfolio. It's like, an asset that's going to produce income. And so the wealthiest people look for larger assets that produce massive income, right? And this is how you create time. And this was all new to me. It was like a revelation, right? I'm like, wow, I'm like, how did I miss this? Because, at 21, I had millions of dollars. I could have been pushing it all to real estate. And when my business was suffering, I would have another income that would support me in order for me to change industries or improve the business or what have you. But I didn't have that cushion. And so I made a decision that I was going to build myself back up. But this time I was going to use the profits and push it all into real estate, commercial real estate. And so that's how I started. I started to buy, 7 or 10 units or 15 units at a time. Later on, it grew to more and more and more and more. By the time 2008 came, I was ready, prepared, educated, and ready to take advantage of all the opportunities that were happening at that time. I grew that portfolio to a certain extent. And then I went, when COVID came, I went through this massive expansion in my business where now, I have, hundreds of doors across Canada and the US. We built a really significant multi-million-dollar portfolio, and I'm on a mission to teach as many people as I can, whoever wants to listen, on how to do exactly what I did.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah.
Ian, you want to...
That was a bit of a synopsis.
I feel like it's a good synopsis.
Yeah, no, again, we've heard some of those stories before, but for anyone that hasn't heard that story, it's just absolutely incredible to see, from as low as you were to where you are now. I think anyone out there that's listening can think that they're in a bad situation and that they're stuck, but you guys aren't, sleeping on benches. You're not $1 million in negative debt. You're not, in these bad situations. So that alone, without any of the other points that we're going to try and tease out of you, I think that in and of itself is reason enough to see that you can do it. So again, thank you very much for sharing that. So I guess, some things to dive into. So when you were first getting into real estate, you said books were a big part of it. What other resources were you using at the time? And again, this is a few years ago now, but so maybe frame it, I guess the question being, what sort of resources or what sort of techniques would you suggest for people that are trying to get into the real estate side of things?
Well, we didn't have YouTube University, that's for sure. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have media, right? So there was no specific real estate shows or programs or anything that you could listen to. We didn't have the book section at Chapters. Was very, you had the business book section, and you'd have your typical business books. I remember seeing The Wealthy Barber, we're talking about 23 plus years ago. All right. And so I'm trying to get educated here on real estate, and I'm like, oh, The Wealthy Barber. So I read The Wealthy Barber. I'm like, okay, this is not for me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be investing into the stock market or whatever. But there is some good concepts that I really liked in The Wealthy Barber. It was just not what it was. I had to really dig deep and to find the content, like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the Think and Grow Rich, to change mindset, and biographies. What really helped was the biographies of the wealthiest people in the world, and to see the things that they did, and then come back and look at my business and see how I could translate that to what I was doing, right? So, success leaves clues, and a lot of people that have achieved success, they've left their entire strategy behind, other people's systems. So, but there wasn't any networks, Wealth Genius certainly didn't exist, So I was like, well, I'm stuck here, and I remember that when I was, going through my darkest moments and realizing that I was a consumer and that I was going to turn everything around, I pretty much sold everything. I sold all the cars, the jewelry, my house, and from the sale of my house, I actually had $93,000. And that was the only thing that actually increased in value. This is why, I knew that real estate was going to be the thing. But everything else, my credit was destroyed. I sold everything. I lost money, on big cars that I had bought, and then you sell it, and then you have to give the dealership money. Because it's devalued so much that now I owe money just to get rid of the thing. And so, it was a big disaster. And at the end of the day, the only thing I had no income, because I went back to rebuild my company, and I was working 9 to 9, 7 days a week, with zero income. Okay. My credit is shot. And the only thing I have is this $93,000 from my house. And thank God that when I was 21, I thought I bought that house as a consumer, but at least I made a move. And so now I'm 23, 24, the house, I got $93,000 in my hand, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And so there was no internet. I mean, internet did exist, but no one was on the internet. So I'm 23 years old. You guys are going to freak out. I was maybe 25 until I had an actual email that I would respond to, right? Like I never used email until I was 25. Wow. You know what I mean? So that's a while back. And so what we used to do is read the newspaper, and in the back of the newspaper you would have the classified section. And the classified section served as a marketplace, very much like Facebook does today, right? And so I'm sitting there having my coffee in my shop, and I'm looking through the classified sections in the morning, and I see, for whatever reason, I always look at the classified sections, but I never noticed. Now that I have this new awareness of real estate, I started to notice all the real estate ads. And so I saw rent to own, call Tony. Apartment for rent, call Tony. Joint venture opportunities, call Tony. Looking for hard money, call Tony. Deal for sale, call Tony. You want to partner up, call me, Tony. And I'm like, God damn, I got to call Tony. You know what I mean? And so I called Tony and I said, are you open to sitting down for a coffee, at Timmy's or something? And he said, yeah, sure. And so I met the guy and I'm like, hey, I want you to be my mentor. And he's like, I don't have time for that. I'm nobody's mentor. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to build my real estate business. But I said, yes, I want what you have. Right. And 23 plus years ago, Wealth Genius didn't exist. Like a place where you can learn and have a community, everything where someone could teach you, or the internet or YouTube University, none of this existed. And so I just went to the person that was doing it. And he said, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to show someone. And I said, well, what about if I make it worth your while? And he's like, you couldn't afford it. I said, try me. Have you ever gotten a quote from a contractor that clearly didn't want the
yes,
job?
Exactly.
So he's gonna price himself out of the contest, yep. Right? And so he said $10,000 a month, and I said, I'll do it. And so apart from the books, it was that mentorship that I got from my it wasn't my first mentor, but I knew I needed access to someone that was doing there before. That's like $120,000 a year. And looking back on it, even now, I mean, we're talking about over 23 years ago. It seems like a lot of money, but looking back, it was like the best thing that I could have done, because he gave me clear direction on what to do, and it was very simple. It was, my first deal was a BRRRR strategy: buy the deal, improve it, refi it, and pull the money back out and do it again, right? And so as I'm doing this, I still don't clearly understand what's happening, but I did it. I pulled my money out and I said, what's next? He's like, do it again. And so that first year, I bought 11 deals, right? I did 11 deals on my first year. And as a result, it's made me into a multimillionaire. And so going back to Ian's question about, what were the tools, I think number one was the education. I read about and learned about successful people, but more than anything was the mentorship. right? Tapping into someone else's experience, right? Because you can only get information until you have all the information, but you haven't done anything. You need to tap into someone's experience, and so that mentorship meant a lot to me, and I think was one of the biggest reasons that I was able to scale so quickly, without being knowledgeable in the industry.
Man, that's amazing. And it's so true how mentorship can really change someone's life. Just in me and Ian's scenario, let me just tell you, Alfonso, maybe like a year and a half ago, I just very vaguely had the idea of investing in the United States. I didn't know anything. I'm like, oh man, the Halifax market was getting tight. I want to buy big apartments. It's kind of tough here. So let me look elsewhere. Started looking in the States. And so just like that, you fly into town not long later. And I talked to Denise first. Denise was the first person I talked to, and then I talked to Ed, and Ed told me there was a U.S. stream. I'm like, oh, a U.S. stream? I want to invest in the States. This is perfect. I joined the program. I get coached by Thomas. I finished my mentorship with Thomas, and then I'm like, Thomas, I found some great deals here. Any chance we can partner up? And he's like, you know what? You're not my student. Sure, let's go for it. And next thing you know, me, Ian, Thomas, we have 100 plus units in Cleveland. And it's all because of you coming to Halifax to teach us everything about multifamily. And then it's just like a domino effect. It all just falls down. And you talk about how you want to change people's life through your mentorship. And this is a direct example of how you've affected our lives. And now, like as me and Ian are growing, we can affect other people's lives. And as we continue to coach, because mentorship, it's just another form of leverage. We talk about OPM and all the types of other people's credit, other people's green card, as you joke around about, but leveraging other people's mind that's another OPM, other people's mind, other people's skill set.
Yeah.
So I think mentorship, it's amazing.
I definitely appreciate that, and the reason I'm so passionate about flying out to Halifax or flying out to all over North America. People are like, how do you do that? Is because of this, is to see the results. Because someone did that for me. Someone was able to just give me a little bit of their time, and it changed my life. Now, there was no organization. That didn't exist, 23 years ago, and we just kind of had to figure it out for kind of on our own. Some people had the foresight to, talk to someone, get some mentorship, because you can watch YouTube videos till you're blue in the face, right? And the videos and content, you'll get great information, right? I met a guy that read 700 books, and I was like, so what did you do? He was like, well, I'm waiting for the next book that's going to tell me what to do. And so basically you wasted your time reading 700 books if you don't apply, and the key is application. The problem with the YouTube University is that most people don't have the confidence to apply. But when you have mentorship and coaching, community, and it doesn't have to be me, right? It doesn't have to be me. It could be anybody. But find somebody that is doing what you're trying to do and model it, right? Model it and make it yours, right? And learn from that person or those people or what have you. Because success leaves clues. And so those are some of the biggest tools and learnings that I got like so early on. I mean, you guys are still young, right? And you're relatively young. You're not like me. You know what I mean? Like,
oh man, are you kidding me? Look at my head. Are you? I should have the same look as you.
I'll give you a couple of years and you'll be like, But ultimately, now it's kind of like a cheat code. To find mentorship, it's kind of like a cheat code. Everyone wants to do things, right? I think every human being, if you really ask them, people want stuff. People want to accomplish things, right? No one wants to play small. The reason they play small is because they lack the confidence, right? They don't know what to do. And, either they're scared of failure or they're scared of, losing what they have, or they're scared of success in some cases, or, whatever it is that is holding that individual back from doing something. And so what happens is when you get around a group of people that are doing stuff, it's a game changer, right? Because it becomes natural, right? Of course you're going to buy 100 units in Cleveland, Like no one within our community is going to look at you like you're crazy, right? But when you go out and you start talking to people that are not knowledgeable in real estate or don't, or lack the confidence in themselves to be able to do these things, they're gonna say, "Well, that's crazy," right? And so it's like the crab bucket idea. You know, all the crab buckets are trying to get out of the bucket, but they're all like, "Oh, stay here with us, stay here with us," you know. And so going back to Ian's question, you know, what are the tools? The books are important, so we can convert books now to YouTube University, all of these things, but there's nothing powerful and like a really strong tool than getting around people that are doing it, finding mentorship, finding coaching, because through that it's like a cheat code. You're gonna skip levels, and once you start skipping levels and you start doing it, you're gonna build the confidence to be able to expand and grow, right? What happens to most people, they try, someone says boo or it doesn't work, the news, and they contract.
I've made the analogy before. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have played video games before, specifically like ones like the Zelda, or like ones where you're out on a map and you have all these little quests and stuff. And it's like having a mentor is like having that cheat sheet that tells you exactly where to go to do that thing. So like you can beat a video game so much faster. So it's like, you know, yeah, it has that feel to it where it's like you're going to run into a problem and you can try and troubleshoot it. You can go back through the level or go through the problem or whatever it might be, and you're just beating your head against it. Or you can have someone to tell you, no, this is what I would do, and then you can go move forward with that. And again, like, you can get through the video game or get through your goals just that much faster when you have someone there that's further ahead than you are, and you're trying to achieve what they've already achieved. So no, that's huge.
They've played the game you're trying to play.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Alfonso, you were big into businesses before, you know, you went full real estate here lately. Can you tell me, like, in hindsight, not so much in hindsight, but what if somebody wants to get into the business world and they're kind of trying to pick, should I, you know, start my own business, or should I buy a business, or should I get into real estate right away? What would you advise? Or yeah.
Well, my research early on told me that the wealthiest people in the world have not only share the love of real estate or own real estate. I mean, that was not the only common thread. The other common thread is they all have multiple streams of income.
So both,
right? So first, yeah. So first things first. Okay. So real estate is the best place to preserve your capital, like save it, like save your capital. There's no other place, right? Put in the stock market. Good luck. Unless you know, I mean, unless you're an expert in the stock market. Other than that, you're just playing like everybody else. Bitcoin, I'll leave it there. You know, maybe gold. Okay, you can store your money, your wealth in gold or precious metals, but then you have to pay for storage, and it doesn't provide income, right? So there's no better place to preserve your capital other than real estate, where you have multiple profit centers and you preserve the wealth that you're building, and you can hedge against inflation, right? Not only that, real estate and business together is what gives you an unfair advantage over the 96% of the people, because there's tax advantages in having businesses and real estate. So, this is a big part of the wealthy. But real estate itself is a business, right? So you gotta number one, treat it like a business, and you need personnel, you need people, and then what you want to do is think about what is symbiotic to what you're doing, right? You want to have multiple streams of income, and you want to choose things that are in harmony with what you are already doing. For example, in my business, right? So I have a property management company. I have our real estate investment firm. We have our private lending business. We have education, so Wealth Genius Education, and we have property management. And so you move this finger, and moves all the other fingers, right? Even though there are multiple streams, multiple ways of capturing, money, but it all, when someone engages here, they engage with all of them, and it moves all the fingers, right? If you get into other industries, in terms of you want to buy other businesses, all of your businesses should have managers that know that industry. I don't suggest you get outside of your industry or what you know unless there's someone managing that knows what they're doing, right? For example, there's a lot of shiny objects out there like, hey, I want to start a restaurant, right? A lot of people have this dream of having a restaurant. I remember as a kid, I used to watch, mobster movies. And, there's always the guy with the restaurant. He meets everybody at the front. All their friends come to visit them at the restaurant. I also had this vision of owning a restaurant. But what the hell do I know about running a restaurant, right? I don't know anything about running a restaurant. But if I just let my mind take over and like, oh, you know what? Like, I can run a restaurant. I can do real estate. I can surely do, run a restaurant. Well, I'm going to lose my shirt, right? Because I have no idea in the cost of food and, personnel. So if I wanted to do that, which I don't, but if I wanted to do that, I would go and look for someone that is already managing restaurants, and I would invest in that person, right, in order to continue to grow the streams that I'm invested in.
No, that's great. That's great advice. I appreciate that. I have another question too, but Ian, do you have anything you want to ask real quick?
So just want to go back to a point from earlier when you were talking about books, and we know that action obviously is the huge proponent to that. But other than like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, what are some other books that you would recommend for people that either are starting or maybe have a few units and they want to scale up? Any recommendations there?
I would the best books that you can read, and it's going to be the types of books that most people are reluctant to read are leadership and sales books, right? If you want to continue to, the difference between where you are and where you want to be in life is people. If you want to go to the next level, you have to learn how to manage people, inspire people, develop people. And so most people don't realize how important it is to leverage other people, right? And so, everyone reads real estate books, and most people want me to say, oh, what's the book that's gonna be like help me grow my business? But the actual books that I would recommend for people to read are leadership and sales books. So leadership, anything by John Maxwell. And he's got the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. He's got the 5 levels of leadership, and anything you can get your hands on in terms of leadership, which leadership it's this concept that most people leave to the end. But they should start with leadership. Everything starts with leadership, because if you have the ability to lead people, you're going to grow your organization. You're going to be able to scale your business. And so I'm big on leadership, and those are the kind of books that people need to get into if they want to grow and scale their business.
No, that's great.
But I remember you mentioned the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership at Expand, and I read it literally the next week, and it was a great book. And John Maxwell has like a slew of different books on leadership, so they're all great.
I would say read them all, right? He's great when it comes to leadership. And, if you really want to scale your business, what's stopping you is people, right? One person can only do so much. And if you are going to scale, you need to start hiring and managing people. That's the difference between being a solopreneur and a real entrepreneur that is going to develop and grow a business, scale a business, but you only can do that with people.
You're right. Exactly. So I guess my next question is, we can probably wrap it up. This is going to be a good one, but obviously guys like us three, we're still actively buying real estate, but a lot of people that are trying to get into the market right now, they're having a hard time. Interest rates are high. Banks are getting tight with financing. What advice would you give somebody that's trying to break into this market, whether it be in Canada or the States, to really step into the game during these tough times?
Yeah, so what I want people to understand is these words that you're using, these are this is just a belief, right? This is a limiting belief that you have. If you say it's a tough time, interest rate, it's a high interest rate market, blah 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 blah. These are just limiting beliefs, because 2 years ago people were saying, well, we can't find deals because interest rates are too low, there's too much competition, there's this, that, the other. There's always going to be something. At the end of the day, there will always be something, but it's just your perception, right? You could say, well, wait a minute. Every time the interest rates go up, that's less competition that I have to deal with. Ultimately, you can't get away from the 4 Ds: death, disaster, divorce, and disease. These are all happening, and so people do have to sell assets, especially now that the baby boomers are exiting life and their businesses, right? And so, you just have to be patient, and you got to learn the game, right? So I'm always buying. I'm buying when the market is high. I'm buying when the market is low. I'm buying when it's sideways or upside down, because when you know what you're doing and you know how to analyze and underwrite deals, it goes back to how many deals are you looking at, right? Anybody that tells me that they can't find deals, my first question is, how many deals did you look at today? Well, I didn't look at any today. Well, how many deals did you look at yesterday? They're like, well, I didn't look at any yesterday. So how many did you look at last week? Well, like last week, you see what happened was my grandmother, I had to bring her soup and this and that. Okay. How many did you look at last month? Well, I didn't really look at last month because it's hard to find. And so really, you weren't even looking, right? And so, that's the question that I would have people ask themselves. When people say it's hard, it's interest rates, in a high interest rate climate, and all of the reasons why people would not pursue real estate right now, I'm going to ask them, how many deals have you looked at in the past month? And so if you're actively looking for deals, you should be looking at multiple deals per day. That's a business. A business is a daily activity that's going to give you a result in the end. And so once a month you jump on realtor.com or .ca every once in a while. That's not looking at deals. No wonder you can't find deals, which I prefer. You know what I mean? Because the more deals you can't find are the more deals that are left for us.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Ian,
No, that's great.
do you have anything?
I guess just to start wrapping things up. Oh, yeah. To finish wrapping some stuff up. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so to start wrapping some stuff up, people that might not know about Wealth Genius, maybe tell us what all you guys are and what all you guys do, and then move into how people can find more about you and get in touch and all that good stuff.
So Wealth Genius is, I guess, a combination of everything I've done in my life. I've ran, several multi-million-dollar companies. I've started them all from scratch. I've built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. I've been in the education space, teaching other entrepreneurs and real estate investors how to get to the next level. I've created thousands of millionaires across the world, and basically I've taken all that and I've created Wealth Genius, which is a real estate educational platform. We have a kick-ass community. It's high-level masterminding, coaching, mentoring, and ultimately, if anything that I say here resonates with anybody that is listening, just go Google me, or find me on YouTube. If you love YouTube University, I have about 1,200 videos for free on my YouTube channel. You can just get into some of those, and if anything that I say there resonates with you, reach out.
Absolutely. And we'll link your YouTube, your Instagram, all that stuff so everybody can find you. But like you said, I feel like you're not a hard man to find.
If you can't find me on your favorite platform, shame on me.
Exactly. Accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Alfonso. This has been great. We're honored to have you here. Hopefully we'll have you back again sometime, maybe like when we the next big milestone, we get to 1,000 units, you'll get to your $1 billion of real estate. We'll circle back.
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right.
Yes,
Cool.
sir.
Thank you again. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to the I think this is the 31st episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast.
Woo!
All right. Take care. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. This was a great one. I don't know about you, Ian, but this is probably my favorite one to date.
I would agree.
Perfect. So yeah, guys, if you got any value from this one, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please follow us on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. I'm going to plug my TikTok every episode. I want to remind you guys that Ian and Janelle are mortgage brokers with the Blake Wilson Group. So if you need any mortgage stuff done, they're your people. Please hit them up. But other than that, again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.